And that's sort of what the Rangers were saying, is that they patrol these giant areas with very few weapons, and they really can't do anything when you have a bunch of traffickers coming in that are heavily armed. Hey everyone, my name is Danny Gold. I'm a producer and correspondent here at Vice News. And today I'm going to be talking to you guys about a story we just did in Costa Rica that's airing this week on the intersection between drug trafficking, sea turtle egg poaching, and an unsolved murder in Costa Rica. It was produced by Brett Schlesinger. And it's a terrific story. You guys should go to vicenews.com and check it out. And I'm here to take your questions about everything that happened and probably some other stuff too. So why don't we get right to it and go to our first question.
Hey Dan, thanks again for coming on. So first person who we're going to be talking today is Aaron Victorson, who is calling us from New York, New York. Let's say it, Aaron.
Hey Dan, thanks for having me on today.
Hey Aaron, very nice living room you got there. It looks just like our office.
It does. It's designed to look that way. It's perfect. So I was curious, how severely has recent violence kind of impacted conservationists' efforts to, really keep up with their work, and have they seen kind of a downturn in volunteer signups since the violence has been kind of publicized?
So that's a really good question. They actually did see a downturn in volunteers. I think upwards of 90% downturn right after this murder happened. It was global news. The interesting thing is that most beaches. Most areas in Costa Rica, I'd say the overwhelming amount, you're going to be safe. There's really not going to be a problem. It was just this one beach that is super dangerous. And that beach itself, they don't send foreign volunteers to that beach right now. Very few people patrol it. So things have kind of gone up in the past few years since that downturn in 2013, I believe. And people are starting to return and do these conservation efforts. And if you want to, I would encourage you to do so and not be scared, because it is very safe there. But it did seem to have a tremendous effect. Everyone we spoke to involved in that conservation community really said that, it's a big numbers game. The more people they have, the more turtle eggs they're able to save. And they had a really, really hard year last year dealing with all that.
Wow. Yeah, that's great to hear. And it definitely seemed like everyone in the documentary kind of echoed those thoughts. That it is mostly safe to work in conservation in Costa Rica, and that, it's only specific areas that are kind of affected, and that it's clearly linked to drug smuggling. What do you think the correlation is specifically between poachers and drug smugglers? Do you think a lot of people are, a lot of drug smugglers are also engaged in poaching, or do you just think that they're happening in the same site, so there's an overlap?
I couldn't really say 100%. I think a lot of it has to do with it happening on the same site. One of the people we speak to, who is a law enforcement officer, says that he's on the beach that was known for drug trafficking. Maybe Jairo, the guy who was murdered, saw something he wasn't supposed to see, and I think that could be the most likely case. What you do have, though, is that a system where when drug trafficking comes into an area, it brings with it guns, it brings with it a matter of solving conflicts through violence. And that starts to pervade society, so that issues that might have been resolved peacefully or in other methods that weren't as violent become more violent, because this sort of attitude starts pervading society. And that's what you have happening right now in certain areas of Costa Rica and anywhere else in the world where drug trafficking comes into a society. I don't know, some of the poachers, they're not drug traffickers, but they are drug addicts. And that comes with too, because a lot of people that are mid-level or helping with the smuggling Costa Rica as a bridge sort of thing are paid off in product, because that's a lot cheaper for smugglers that are making their way north. And when you have that product, you have people who want to move it to other people, and then there comes a demand for it, and then you have addicts. And that seems to be another situation that's happening on the beaches of Costa Rica. You have these people that now have to feed their addiction, and that leads to, I think some of them took up poaching because it's an easy way to make money for them in that area.
And on the same topic of kind of, just talking about confidence levels among conservationists, do the conservationists you've spoken with and the Costa Ricans in general you've met have confidence in the government's ability to prosecute drug smugglers?
It's a tough question, because we only really dealt with this specific case, and people weren't too confident. But I was told that if that case had been somewhere like the capital of Costa Rica, it would have been prosecuted a lot differently. This was Limon, which is one of the most dangerous areas in Costa Rica. It's known for being a hub of drug trafficking, and they weren't too confident in the local court system there. So I really can't speak to that. I think there is more faith in Costa Rica than you would find in a lot of Costa Rica's neighbors, which is why the way that this case was handled was so disappointing to a lot of the population there. But I think some of that faith has started to waver in light of this killing and a few other recent big busts and big drug trafficking scandals.
Very cool. What was it like with experiencing that interview with the drug trafficker that you spoke to? I know you can't give away any too much information about your sources, but what was that whole experience like for you?
It was pretty relaxed after a point. I mean, we were a little nervous. We didn't want to scare the guy away. But the guy who connected us was our fixer down there, who's pretty special individual who has had ties in both the drug trafficking world and the law enforcement world. And he was pretty helpful and pretty confident in setting these things up. He's also the kind of guy that if he's on your side, you're not really worried about anything else that's ever going to happen when he's with you.
So eating the turtle egg was more stressful for you than that interview, you think?
Yeah, definitely. And
that looks like a tough moment.
The thought process that went with it was definitely very, very challenging.
Were you anticipating like a Jon Snow style traitor stabbing when you got back to the camp? Was it like a test for you, or do you think it was just were a lot of people at the bar kind of watching and laughing, or was that?
We were trying to be a little inconspicuous in the bar, even though we were three gringos, so we stood out a bit, but no one really paid attention to us. And the fact that I was sort of egged on and encouraged to do it, it wasn't really my idea. I could have done without it. But I was sort of egged on and encouraged to do it by Didier, who's a big part of our story and is one of the most premier sea turtle conservationists in the world. Someone who's dedicated his life to this for 25 years and risks his life when he goes out and mowing beach. He was enthusiastic about me trying it. He said it was an important part of the culture, so I went along with it.
Absolutely. I think it shows the kind of duality that's necessary there, that, conservation, there's a part of the tradition that is going to be maintained, and there's a way to interact with the environment that's sustainable. And I think it's very forgivable to have a certain turtle egg. But thank you so much.
That's a really good way of putting it, and I'm actually going to steal that answer in the future when people ask me about that.
Please do. It's all yours.
Thank you. Let's move along right now. Aaron, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah. Hey,
Thank
Dan.
you so much for answering my questions. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, Aaron, thanks for coming on, man. Dan, speaking of eating that turtle egg, we actually got a question via email. This is a first for us.
Okay.
I want you to take a look at. This is from Hannah, who wants to know, what was the thought process behind eating that turtle egg? It seemed to her a bit sensationalist that you did it. So, how did you and the editors and the producers justify including that scene in the story?
Well, yeah, she says it all evoked a sense of sensationalism and was questionable on a personal, ethical level and on a professional one. How do I justify it? That's a really good question. We did have a lot of debate in the office about whether we should include that. And there are still a few people who think that I shouldn't have. I would disagree that it's sensationalist. It is a part of Costa Rican culture and tradition. And as I mentioned to Aaron, we had Didier with us, who pretty much was like, you've got to try it now. You can kind of see that in the piece. He's like, this is an important part of our culture. It wouldn't be the same if you're reporting on it. You have to understand where it comes from. So it definitely was a moment where I was sort of like, is this okay to do? And I made the decision to do it at his urging. And I'm pretty confident that it might not have been 100% right thing to do, but I'm okay with it. Because Didier has dedicated his life to this. This is his job. This is his life. And if he was okay with me doing it, I don't really see how anyone else could have a problem with me doing it. And as Aaron explained just now, it is a part of the culture. You do have to understand where these traditions and where this culture is coming from. So yeah, we went ahead with it. We had a lot of internal debate here. And we decided at the end, me and the producer and the editor decided that it was an important scene to sort of show. So that's how I justify it. It hasn't really kept me awake at night, but it's definitely something that I definitely see where Hannah and where Aaron were coming from in them asking about it.
Yeah, and you feel like you were egged on to do it a little bit.
Did you just say egged on to do it?
Yeah, borrowing your pun.
That's terrible.
Well, you said it first, so.
That's awful.
Hey, Dan, we got a couple of tweets I want you to take a look at. This is from Murar. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce this Twitter name, so forgive me. But it's two-parter. Do the poachers always have do they have any connection to the turtles, or do they just view the turtles as objects? And are the poachers aware of the harm that they're causing by doing this poaching? What's your perspective on that?
You know, I can't really speak to all the poachers. We only really got time to spend with retired poacher Carlos. We actually have a clip of that right now that we can air.
Sí, de casi toda la vida. El huevo ha sido como una tradición y vine aquí como un huevero a huevear. Tomaba los huevos por comprar comida, por necesidad, pero yo a mi consciente sabía que era un daño a las tortugas. Yo sí lo entiendo. Muy difícil porque la mayor parte de personas no tienen trabajo y cogen los huevos por vender, otros por cambiarlos por drogas, pero hacen mucho daño a las tortugas.
So I hope you all enjoyed the mesh shorts and collared shirt combination outfit that I was rocking right there. I'm really proud of getting that on screen. As Carlos just said, you know, he did understand what he was doing. I don't think all of the poachers do. I think many obviously are aware of it. There are a lot of awareness campaigns there about what's happening with the eggs and the endangered populations, and they're aware of the conservation groups out there. So obviously I think, you know, they can put one and one together and see that this is hurting the turtle population. I think for a lot of people it's done out of necessity. So, you know, it's either why are they going to care about turtles or why are they going to put that at the forefront if they themselves are starving and unemployed and have no way to feed their children. It's really a lot to ask of someone when this is their only means of making any money or you know, feeding themselves, to be more concerned with the plight of turtles than of anything else. So yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that according to Carlos, he was aware, and I think that many others are aware. It just comes down to necessity.
Well, that's a good answer, Dan. Very thoughtful. Hey, but you know, we did get a bonus question for you here.
I did.
And it's from our same tweeter whose name I can't pronounce, sorry.
Okay.
Dan, are you single and looking to mingle?
Let's cut to a commercial real quick.
Yeah, well,
Do we have commercials lined up at all?
not for the internet. We'll talk to our sponsors about that after this, but you know, let's just move on instead to our next caller, which is Lindsay Jones. So let's say hi to Lindsay. Lindsay, you there?
Hey. So I have another question, not to get back to the violence, because I don't want to focus on that too much. But it seemed like Carlos was describing that Costa Rica for a long time seemed to be almost immune to a lot of the drug trafficking that was happening, you know, in Mexico, Nicaragua, where it seemed to be much worse. But it does seem that in the past couple years, there is much more of an increase in the violence. Why do you think that after such a time that now Costa Rica is finding itself, you know, more affected by this drug trafficking now?
You know, I don't really have a full answer for that, but I think that, you know, in situations where drug trafficking routes are paid more attention to or shut down, there's always another route that pops up. You have that now. You know, the Caribbean was popular in the 80s, and then there was a really concerted effort to police it. And only now recently, when going up through Central America and Mexico has gotten a lot tougher, people have returned back to that sort of Caribbean side of trafficking that way. So I assume that's what's happening in Costa Rica, that, you know, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, things have gotten a lot more violent there in the past couple decades. There's been a heavier presence of the U.S. coming in and encouraging more strident policing. So Costa Rica is sort of this big untapped area that really hasn't been, you know, exposed to this before. And as the drug trafficker or drug dealer we spoke to said, you know, there's now a fight for dominance there. You also have these natural parks and this sort of preserved coastline where things are just wide open. So I think that's a lot of the reasons why Costa Rica is now experiencing this. Maybe also Costa Rica doesn't have a military. It's seen as sort of weak in their ability to fight against drug trafficking. But it definitely seems like there's an uptick there, and that, you know, cartels are going to look for any chink in the armor, any sign of weakness, and they're going to expose that. And that's probably what they see in Costa Rica right now. It's just sort of wide open place where they can, you know, store things there as a bridge, as both people we spoke to who deal with this issue said, where, you know, cartels from Colombia or Panama can meet with cartels from Mexico and sort of do this drop-off stage. And yeah, I mean, that seems to be really what the case is there now. It is surprising, though, that it was actually left alone for so long. That kind of shocked me. It's also better off economically than all the countries around it. Its government has seemed to be doing a better job, but I think now, traffickers don't care. They're going to move in when they have an opportunity to move in somewhere, and that seems to be the case.
To go from there, the part when you were with the Rangers, it kind of seems like they are the only thing, that is now stopping these drug traffickers because, I guess they are an easy target. If there's only a couple Rangers roaming around, it's like, what can they do? How can we help, them?
I think there is a pretty strong anti-drug unit in the Costa Rican police. I know the U.S. has put a lot of money into sort of building up those response teams. And as the undercover agent we spoke to said, they're out there, they're trying to do it. But when it comes down to the national parks, there's Coast Guard, but there really isn't that heavy police force out in these parks. They're pretty isolated. So it's not like you can have a rapid response team there all the time. And that's sort of what the Rangers were saying, is that they patrol these giant areas with very few weapons, and they really can't do anything when you have a bunch of traffickers coming in that are heavily armed. It's kind of certain death if they were to step up and try to do something. So I think that what Mr. Molina, who we spoke to, said was that they need better weapons and they need more Rangers, and they need to be taken more seriously if they want to stop these things from happening in their national parks.
I just thought overall really fascinating, great piece, enjoyed watching it.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, so Dan, I think we're just about at the end of the show, but there is a tweet that I want you to address. This is about follow-up. So if and when this case was to be reopened, do you think the team's going to head back down and take another look?
I don't know. If the case is reopened, I think it would be the sort of thing where you'd have to be at the case every single day, and it's going to be a lengthy case. So I actually don't know. I'm sure as a print situation, we would definitely follow it up. But as a video, I don't even know what the laws are of having cameras inside Costa Rican courts. I think from what I've heard, the case might be under appeal. I'm not 100% on that, but I can definitely see it happening. But we definitely will keep our viewers and our readers updated as soon as we hear anything about that.
All right, so Dan, I think that's the end of our show. Thanks for coming on today. Yeah, that's it. You did a great job.
Well, you were sort of mediocre, but I powered through.
Listen, I do have one issue that you promised our viewers on Twitter that you're going to answer the question, what's your favorite summer salad?
Did I promise them that?
You did. You promised it. You said you would discuss it.
I like the whole watermelon cucumber feta thing. I think it's very refreshing, healthy. You get some fruit and vegetables. And cheese, so you can't go wrong. So I would definitely say that's my favorite summer salad.
Great. With that, why don't you take us out of the show?
Wait, do you disagree?
I can't disagree with your preference.
Okay. That's true. You can't disagree with the preference. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Part 3 of our documentary is up today. The full length will be up tomorrow at vicenews.com. You can see them on YouTube. You can see them on our website. Please go and watch it. And thank you very much to all our participants. And hopefully next week, Charlie the Duff will be back, even though he probably won't, but everyone wants to see Charlie. Thanks again for tuning in.
Estas son las armas que tenemos los guardaparques, ¿verdad? Estas armas son muy viejas. Ahora los cazadores andan con armas AK-47, 9 milímetros. Los cazadores furtivos nos tiran a nosotros, y nosotros con esto.
It's like old cowboy weapons.